All right, so today we're doing a deep dive on something a little different.
Mm-hmm.
We're diving into how to shift your mindset
Okay.
to feel better. And get this, in just 5 minutes.
5 minutes.
5 minutes. That's what the source material claims.
Interesting.
And honestly, some of the stuff in here,
Yeah.
it's pretty practical. There are even a few, like, historical examples, even some research they pull in.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So are you ready to dive in?
Absolutely. Let's do it.
Okay, so the source material, it starts off with this idea, right, about picturing your future self.
Okay.
Like way in the future,
Mm-hmm.
looking back at whatever you're worrying about right now.
Okay.
But here's the thing. Your future self is actually finding it
Finding it.
funny. Like they're laughing at your current worries.
That's an interesting perspective.
Right. So, I mean, can you even imagine that? Like picturing yourself years from now, just,
Yeah, no, I get it. Like, it's that whole thing where, you're so caught up in the moment, right? But then if you kind of zoom out and you see it from like a future you perspective, it can really shift things. And there's actually like a psychological term for that. It's called distancing.
oh,
Yeah, it's basically this technique, this mental technique that helps you kind of detach,
from the intensity of what you're feeling right now.
Exactly. Like, imagine it, right? You, 5 years from now, 10 years from now, looking back at what's stressing you out today, would you even remember it?
Probably not.
Exactly. And that's the point, right? It's like that shift in perspective. It can make those problems, those worries feel so much smaller, so much more manageable.
Totally. Sometimes I catch myself, like spiraling about something so small.
Oh, yeah.
But then I force myself to stop and ask, will this even matter next week? And the answer is almost always no.
Makes sense.
So the source, it also says this, and this is a big one.
Okay.
Thoughts are not reality.
That's a good one.
I know that intellectually, like, I get it, but it's so easy to forget when you're in it,
Oh, absolutely. It's so easy to get like caught in this thought loop, right? And then you start believing everything your mind throws at you.
Exactly. And that's what the source is getting at, right? Like, our thoughts, they aren't always accurate.
No, they're not. They're not facts.
Like, let's say, I don't know, you bomb a presentation at work.
Oh,
Right.
yeah.
Immediately,
Yeah.
your mind might jump to, I'm a failure, I'm going to get fired.
Right, right.
But that's just a thought. It's not a fact.
Exactly. So what if instead of that, right, you kind of reframe it like, okay, that didn't go as planned. What can I learn from it?
Yeah, that's so much better.
Right. It's like hitting the reset button on your thinking.
Totally.
Yeah.
So then how do we actually break free when we get stuck in those negative thought spirals, those thought loops?
Yeah, yeah.
Because the source, get this, they actually recommend procrastination.
Procrastination
Yeah.
to feel better.
Yeah.
Okay, now before everyone turns off the podcast,
Right.
hear me out. It's not about like ignoring your problems.
Yeah.
It's about strategically like delaying the overthinking.
So instead of trying to like suppress those thoughts, those worries, you're basically saying to them, okay, I'll worry about you later. I've scheduled worry time for you later.
Exactly. And you're acknowledging them, you're not pretending they don't exist,
Right.
but you're choosing not to engage with them right now.
Yeah.
And that can be really powerful because it gives you back a sense of control. And that control can help like calm that anxiety.
Okay, I like that. I love this idea of a worry timer.
Yeah.
It's like, all right, worries, you get 15 minutes, and then I'm getting back to work.
Exactly.
So I'm curious, are there any other like strategies from the source material that you found, helpful for dealing with these thought patterns?
So they don't mention this specifically, but one thing that I found really helpful, and there's actually a lot of research to back this up, is mindfulness.
Mindfulness.
Yeah. It's basically about bringing your attention to the present moment, right? Like your breath, your senses, what you can see, what you can hear.
Okay.
And that can be so powerful because it helps interrupt those racing thoughts.
You're like cutting them off.
Yeah, exactly. You're shifting your focus away from that mental chatter and you're grounding yourself in the here and now.
Right.
And that can be incredibly calming, incredibly powerful.
That makes sense. So shifting gears a bit, the source tells this really powerful story
Okay.
about prisoners of war in World War II.
Wow.
And the point they're making is that even in these like incredibly challenging circumstances, like we're talking about POWs,
Right.
hope played a really significant role in their survival.
That's fascinating.
And made me think of,
Yeah.
all the research on resilience, right? Like there's this psychiatrist, Viktor Frankl.
Oh, yeah. Viktor Frankl.
He survived the Holocaust, and he wrote this book, Man's Search for Meaning. And in it, he talks about how those who held on to hope, even in the face of just unimaginable suffering, were more likely to persevere.
It's like having something to hold on to, something to look forward to.
Exactly. They would focus on things like reuniting with loved ones or pursuing a meaningful purpose, after the war.
It gave them a reason to keep going.
Yeah, and it's a powerful reminder that hope, even in the darkest of times, can have a huge impact on our well-being.
Totally.
Okay, so
Mm-hmm.
last but not least, the source concludes with this really thought-provoking idea.
Okay.
They say, it's always you versus you. What are your initial thoughts on that?
You versus you, huh? When you first hear it, it sounds kind of like competitive almost.
Right.
But I think what they're getting at is this idea of self-mastery.
Self-mastery.
Yeah, it's like we can't always control what happens to us, right?
Right.
Life throws curveballs.
All the time.
But what we can control is how we react.
Our interpretations of things.
Exactly, our choices. So this you versus you thing, it reminds us that we are often our own biggest obstacle.
That's deep.
Right. It's about overcoming self-doubt, building self-discipline, cultivating a positive mindset. Those are the battles, the internal battles that really shape our lives.
So if someone's feeling stuck or overwhelmed,
Yeah.
this is like a reminder that you have way more power than you think.
Yes, exactly.
It all comes back to that internal battle, you versus you.
Absolutely. And the amazing thing is, even small shifts in your thinking, they can have this, ripple effect.
A ripple effect.
Yeah, on your whole life.
That's an excellent takeaway. So if you're listening, here's something to think about.
Okay.
If our thoughts really do shape our reality, what's one small shift in your thinking that you can make today to start feeling just a little bit better?
That's a good question.
Because even a tiny change can make a world of difference.
I like
It
that.
can.
Yeah.
And that's our deep dive for today.
Thanks for having me.
Of course, always a pleasure.
It was fun.
Yeah, this is a good one.
Mm-hmm.